Good morning, everyone. I have 9:15 and we'll get started. I know they're not a full Senate here, but hopefully they will show up. So we'll just stand up and I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So we'll open the hearing on the Senate Education Committee on House Bill 1358, and the sponsor is Representative Osborne, but Representative Pernell is going to do the honors. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Katie Peternell. I represent the towns of Wolfboro and Tuftonboro, Carroll District 6. I am here to introduce House Bill 1358 in the absence of Representative Osborne. This bill is establishing a commission to study transitioning all public schools to public charter schools. The intention is purely just a study, just to investigate the possibility, primarily for two reasons, because the funding mechanism for charter schools is from the state level and then through fundraising. And the other is that there's a lot more parental involvement in a charter school. That's necessary because of the funding mechanism. It's not the local school board and the voters making a lot of the decisions. We specifically limited the number of members of this commission so that it would be easier to work with and that give them the option to bring in anybody they needed for references. I will also add that Representative Osborne has had two constituents at least reach out who are actually very interested. So there is some local grassroots interest in this bill.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm calling Deborah House. Morning.
I didn't turn the microphone on. Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the Senate Education Committee. I'm Deborah Howes, President of the American Federation of Teachers, New Hampshire, and we're here to oppose HB 1358. While we feel that charter schools have a place in the New Hampshire public education system, they are public schools. Charter schools are specific, focused, mission-driven schools, and they are not meant to serve all students because they are mission-driven. They focus on a specific educational philosophy, such as outdoor education or Montessori, or they focus on a specific topic, a school for the technology, a school for the arts, or they focus on a specific population, students who are in danger of dropping out of their local public school. We have several charter schools that fill those needs. They are not really intended to serve every single student as a public school. We need to maintain our district public schools and make sure that we have the opportunity for a robust public education in every single school district so that we have a place for all of our students to get their constitutionally guaranteed opportunity for a robust public education. I do have prepared testimony that I will be handing in as well. So I want to make those points. Having this study commission is really a distraction from the work that you need to be doing, which is figuring out how to make sure you're supporting the school districts where they're having difficulty raising the funds to provide that robust opportunity for all of their students. And that's the charge that's been given to this legislature repeatedly by the Supreme Court of New Hampshire. It hasn't been solved yet. We still have districts where in our state, where students are not getting their constitutionally guaranteed right to it, the opportunity for a robust public education. So figuring that out first, and then if you want to look at a charter school model, maybe that can be down the road. But we still need to make sure that every single student in New Hampshire can get that great public education. And that's not happening now. So this is really premature. And again, charter schools are mission driven. So how can you have that and not have that fallback of your district public school where every single student has to be accepted? And that's my testimony.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any questions? Any questions? Senator Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for taking my question. In your closing remark right there, took me a little off guard. You said that children are not getting a great public education. Is that your belief at this time?
I believe that there are some places where the opportunity for a public education is less robust than others because resources are limited. If you look around the state, we have places where they are cutting back on teachers. They are cutting back on the course opportunities that are offered. They are cutting back on electives, on arts, on music. Manchester is doing it, Nashua is doing it. You're seeing many places across the state where they have to cut back on their programming because of the finances. So yes, the opportunity is less rich in some districts than others. That's happening now because of the financial situation. And you can tie that directly to the unequal funding opportunities. We also have decades of state Supreme Court decisions saying the state has not solved the funding issue for how to support all school districts so they provide equal educational opportunities. Whether a school district has a diverse and healthy property tax base per student or a less diverse and less economically sound property tax base. So until that's solved, we really shouldn't be looking at charterizing all of our public schools because then we're leaving some kids behind.
I do have a follow-up. Thank you.
Yep.
So based on what you just said and equal funding, wouldn't this model actually be beneficial to the schools to have equal funding across the board and treat all schools the same?
Well, one thing that wasn't mentioned is that under our charter school law, local districts have to provide 80% of the funding for charter schools. That wasn't mentioned at all. So where do you come up with that if you're already struggling?
Thank you.
Yeah?
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Sarah Thorne?
Good morning.
Welcome.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this morning. My name is Sarah Thorne. I'm from Holderness. I am a very proud retired public school teacher, and I'm here just representing myself today. But I'm speaking for the many, many teachers who have devoted their careers to public education and improving the lives of young people, and it was my honor to be a public school teacher. I'm here today to speak in opposition to House Bill 1358. And do I think that there are problems that need to be solved in our public schools? Yes. Do I think that this is the way to do it? Absolutely no. My concern is that this bill and others that are being presented to the legislature this year and in recent years create a sense of chaos and great uncertainty. And in particular, I'd like to focus your attention on the uncertainty that it creates for young people contemplating going into education and teachers who are already in schools. This has the effect of making them uncertain about their future and their choice. Would I have gone into education back when I did if this bill and others before the legislature in recent years had been creating this climate against public education. No, I would not have entered the teaching profession. And I know that many other teachers would feel the same way. So I want you to consider the impact that this bill will have on the recruitment of good new teachers who are willing to be professionals, who are willing to go through the education to become accredited and stay current with their professions and share that with students. For example, in my high school, where I taught, Prospect Mountain High School, serving Barnstead and Alton, we had a physics teacher who came from an engineering, from the engineering profession because he wanted to devote his life to education. And he prepared students with engineering courses to go into that profession. And many of his graduates did and are tremendously successful. He started our robotics program that was an award winner many times over. Our language teachers, our EMT teacher. I had the privilege of teaching honors anatomy and physiology and graduating many dozens and dozens of nurses, physical therapists, occupational therapists, and nurses' aides who are taking care of all of us here in this state. We need qualified, certified professional educators to make New Hampshire tick, to attract businesses, to attract young families, to come to New Hampshire and to stay in New Hampshire. Finally, I want to address the notion that this is just a study committee, as one of the previous speakers mentioned. It's not just a study committee. It sends a very strong message to people such as myself who are considering starting their careers or sustaining their careers in education. It sends a very strong message to young families thinking about where to educate their children. So I encourage you to vote no on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee members? Senator Sullivan.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you. Just based on what you just said, what is that message that you think is being sent?
I think the message is that there is a lot of uncertainty about educational policy and the value of public education and public schools in this state, and that there's going to be a lot of flux in the future. And it's, if you have a choice of where to go, where to teach, or where to live with your family, New Hampshire is not a welcoming place for you to be.
Follow up? I would disagree with that. I think that families actually come here because of the education freedom that we have, but charter schools are public schools. So we're talking about looking at public schools as a whole. Isn't that a positive thing to look at the whole picture of public schools?
I think that charter schools can play a role, a very specific role, but I don't think they should replace the public education that we have, and the accountability of our existing public schools, the ability for our teachers to unionize, the ability for our communities to have a stable, qualified population, particularly for, there are a lot of ramifications of this on special education. It's just one of the very important ramifications of moving to a policy like this.
Thank you.
I have a question. Emphasizing public schools, you're emphasizing the chaos that it causes maybe for teachers. Have you thought about the families who would like to have a different kind of education for their child the child doesn't necessarily fit in the school where they are assigned to?
Yes.
Give them an option?
Yes, yes, thank you. There needs to be options for families. There shouldn't be merely one school as a possibility. And we already have made provisions for some of those options in the state, but we don't want to change our model of education to the extent that it throws the public schools, the existing public school model out.
Okay,
That has to be the fundamental, steady backdrop of our educational system.
okay, thank you. Seeing no other questions, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mary Wilkie. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Mary Wilkie. I'm from Concord, and thank you, members of the committee. I oppose HB 1358. I agree with many of the things that Ms. House said about how charter schools are different from traditional public schools, and so I won't repeat those aspects. I wanted to just quickly respond to the question about whether aren't charter schools public schools, and yes, they are, but they aren't overseen by elected board members who the public gets to vote for. They aren't as transparent as public schools so they're public in one sense, but they're very different from the traditional public schools. They do their own fundraising. They're not accountable to the local property taxpayers, and that's a huge difference in my opinion, as is the lack of transparency about budgeting and curriculum. I was at the hearing recently in Representatives Hall about the constitutional amendment about income tax, and I heard many representatives and senators from the majority party talk about how voters are their boss, and at the same time it was mentioned that often sign-ins on bills are ignored, and there was the excuse that, well, those people aren't really aware of what's really going on, or they're being managed by other people or whatever. We've seen times when every single testifier at a hearing has been against a bill except for the sponsors, and yet the bill passes. And I'm not sure what the rationale there is, but maybe people like me who testify are considered special interests. I am a retired public school teacher, but I have no personal interest because I have my pension and nothing else. My kids went to public school, but they're done. My grandchildren go to public school in another state. So I have nothing personal I'm getting out of being here, and I feel like sometimes it's expected that that is what's going on. I'm here, I became a public school teacher because I really believe in public education. I benefited tremendously from it, and I have seen many other people do so. And so I'm not here because I was a teacher. I didn't become a teacher. I'm not here because I was a teacher. I'm here because I believe in public education, and that's why I became a teacher. So I just would like to say that. But if we're not, if the voters who are the boss of you all aren't the people who sign in and aren't the people who testify, then I wonder who they are. In this case, there are people out there who probably aren't coming here, but they can vote, quote, vote with their feet. We have 154,000 students about in public school, traditional public schools right now. There are 6,300 in charter schools and about 1,200 on wait lists. So that's 7,500 students on wait lists. 7,500 students who either want to be, whose parents want them in charter schools or who are waiting to get in them. 154,000 whose parents are not putting them on waiting lists. I think they have voted with their feet. Where is the clamor for this bill? Like, who is it that is excited about the idea of turning all of our public schools into public traditional schools, into public charter schools, where the community will have no say over what's going on in them? I don't see it, and I don't see it in those numbers. I agree with there's one thing in this, in the charge of the commission, to examine funding models that would reduce reliance on local property taxes while increasing state-level funding support. I wholeheartedly agree with that goal. It doesn't have to be done in the context of deciding whether to turn all our public schools into charter schools. It could be a goal of a bipartisan commission on its own. And that just leads me to one more thing. The composition of this commission, as described in the bill, is very concerning. It's 3 members of the House appointed by the Republican Speaker, 1 member of the Senate appointed by the Republican President of the Senate, the Republican-appointed Commissioner of the Department of Education, and then 1 representative of a public charter school and 1 of a public traditional school, who are also appointed by the Republican-appointed Commissioner of Education. It doesn't seem like a good faith effort to look at all the possibilities. It looks like there's a very strong bias already in that composition. And I hope that, maybe that seems disrespectful. I try not to be disrespectful, but having seen so many bills this session that are chipping away one way or the other at public education, and seeing that even the bill to just study ways of better funding public education got the kibosh, it's hard not to look at that list of potential members of this commission and think that it's not a setup in some way.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I just have clarification, if you don't mind. I just wanted to make a clarification. First of all, when these committees are set up, they're generally bipartisan, even no matter what party the speaker is, because the speaker and the president do represent both sides of the aisle. But also, I don't think anybody knows the political affiliation of our Commissioner of Education.
Is that, should I answer? That, I don't know either. I'm just saying,
Okay.
appointed
I just
by
wanted
a,
to clarify
and,
that.
and as for the other issue, I have seen bills where they have said, 2 from the majority party and 1 from the minority party. And in this case, there's no guarantee. I mean, maybe they would do that, but the public has no guarantee that that's the way it would be.
It will be done that way.
Well, then why isn't it in the statute? I guess I would ask.
But it's sort of the tradition, everybody knows that it's not one party represented on all the committees or commissions. It's just, it has to be done, so.
All right, well,
you
I'm
can
glad to hear that.
Rest
Thank you.
assured. So,
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank
you
you.
very much. Unless there's somebody in the audience who wants to speak on this. Yes, sir? Do you want to come up and give testimony? You state your name and,
Microphone, please.
Shut-
you, sir.
I shut it off, I'm sorry. Representative Wood, representing Merrimack 13, Pittsfield, and Chichester. I'm not sure exactly where I want to start on this, but just for full disclosure, I am a chair of a charter school in Loudon. We're in our 3rd year, Benjamin Franklin Academy, so I know the benefits of the charter school structure, and I can address any questions on that. I also have been a school board. I've done probably every job or every committee that's in Pittsfield Elementary School. In Pittsfield, I've been there for about 3 decades, and the system we have now is terrible. Pittsfield may be the worst of the worst, but it's pretty bad right now. We had a school board. First year, we had a school board candidate not on the ballot. It was a write-in. I think when people showed up for baseball, there was 2 people. We have 2 commissions or 2 warrant articles to review the school and when we're closing it. I wish I had the charter school system to introduce to them now. 5 years ago, I tried to convince the school, the high school. The high school was perfect for charter school. And obviously, it's pretty hard to do something like that without cooperation. It takes extraordinary cooperation. Pretty much, the best part of a charter school, it reminds me of a business. To think we're going to vote people in, the school boards are pretty, I was the chair of the school board, couldn't take it after 3 years. To think that we're going to fix this problem by electing people who have no experience at all in running a school. We've had many schools that were in the black by millions of dollars. I've never seen a business that far off, spending that much money. I don't even know how they could do it. Cash flow, I wake up and go to bed at night looking at cash flow for my school. It's really tough running a charter school. We don't have the type of money the regular schools have, but that forces us to do a different job. It's a completely different structure. So we got a SAU, we have a school board, and we have an administration like in regular schools. Superintendent is SAU, but you also have the principal. So I went to the last Pittsfield meeting. The administration, principals, and that group talked. I was actually kind of impressed. Then it was to the SAU. They can't do anything without the SAU blessing it. And then the school board, obviously, it just breaks down. The trying to get the result that I believe Pittsfield needs, that structure wouldn't do it. I think the value of putting a board together, nonprofits do pretty well. I mean, basically what the charter school does is create a nonprofit. And so we're under all the, we're a business. I have to file and do all those things. I never, ever thought I'd know what a DOE 25 was. I file them. We file the same DOE, and a lot of the pieces are different, but we file the same DOE the schools file, and we get it done on time. Pittsfield, I was amazed, didn't have a audit since 2022. And we're in our third year and just put, I think, 3 audits in place. So I don't understand with all this money and all this focus in the school system, how they expect it to work. 3 decades. Now, people blame me because I'm a Republican. They want money to run the schools, but I've been a rep for 2 terms, 4 years, and I said, it's really hard to blame me. The schools were pretty much the same for 3 decades since I've been here, and I've been working with the schools, and nothing has changed. It's only money, and it'll get better in the future. And it really needs to be overhauled. I think the charter school that's been around a long time. That bill's been around a long time. I was pretty impressed when I read it for the first time and said, "This is something I wanted to do," and I saw it as a solution 5 years ago. And now that I've been through the process, it is definitely a solution for Pittsfield.
So, Mr. Wood?
yes, sir.
Back to the bill.
Oh, am I speaking too long? I'm sorry.
Are you supporting the bill,
Yes, I am.
the study committee?
To be honest with you, I wish I would take the bill we have here right now and implement it at Pittsfield. I wouldn't wait for this discussion, but I understand I understand the differences between a charter school and a district school. So, yeah, I'll go. I'm sorry if I'm talking too long. So.
Okay.
you
Senator
have any
Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for taking my question. Can you explain to us how a charter school is funded, where the tax dollars come from to fund the charter school?
Yeah, we get about $9,300 from the state, and then we have to look out. We have to ask for the money. We don't get any money from the towns. We don't have any arrangements with the towns. I think charter schools, what you should look at in this process of the study is to make arrangements with the towns. I mean, the towns, they'll get a better bang for the buck. Yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted clarification because we had heard in earlier testimony that public schools were giving money to the charter schools. So I thank you for the clarification, and I do understand the fundraising part of charter schools as well. So I thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other
Any
questions?
other questions? Oh, sorry.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? You said no. You changed your mind? Okay. Brian Hawkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief, and I'll try not to raise points that have already been brought up already. For the record, Brian Hawkins representing NEA New Hampshire. We are here opposed to House Bill 1358, and I think there are three main points I want to raise. One is the membership of the commission that was brought up. I think I would hope we could all agree that this would be a significant change. We're talking about transitioning all public schools to in the state to charter schools. If you're going to do that, there are, as some of the representatives before me said, there's a lot to that, and to have such a limited commission, limited number of voices here, it seems that's a very incomplete commission if you're going to examine this. The other issue we have here is the mission of the commission and the charges under Roman 4. The study of the potential benefits of restructuring all public schools, not including what about the other side? What about the negatives? What about the consequences of doing that? How to transition to charter-based governance could increase the local district flexibility. This seems like an incomplete mission for a very significant change. And then finally, I don't see how you could do all that by November 1st of 2026. If you're going to put the time in to truly examine this, I think the membership needs to be significantly different, and certainly the time has to be extended quite a bit. And then just from some of the comments that were raised earlier, there are processes and options at the local level for community members if they want to explore this sort of thing, and we think that that's the best way to continue to operate. So with that, I'll close, and happy to try and take any questions.
That's the reason there's going to be a study committee, because we're looking for answers and looking for opportunities. And yes, November 1st is very short, but if something comes out in the study committee, that we can actually have a bill or recommendations for next year, or for next session, so.
Yeah, and I think the part of the concern you've heard from some other members of the public have been when you're looking at the 5 charges of the commission, and I know in my experience with commissions, chairs try to stick to the specific legislative charge that they're given. These seem woefully inadequate. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Senator Altschul has a question for you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Mr. Hawkins, for taking my question. With regards to what you said, that this seems the charge of this commission would be woefully inadequate. And I agree with you that there's some inadequacies in here, and I'm wondering if you can expound upon those a little bit. One thing I found to be missing is any recognition of exploration of how we got here. How did we develop SAUs? How did we develop public charter schools? And what were the relationships between those two entities, so that people on this commission would have solid footing? Because I think, as we've witnessed today, not everyone knows the history of these structures.
Right.
So what else is missing as far as you're concerned? I've given you one.
Just a few, but I don't think this is a complete list. I mean, you talked about the history of charter schools. So are we talking a transition to state board approved charter school model? Or are we talking about a transition to locally approved charter school models, which are that is also something that can be done now? What about issues of transportation, special education, all kinds of issues of staffing? What about the retirement system and the potential liability that you may ensue if those entities aren't part of the New Hampshire retirement system, with an unfunded liability that still has yet to be paid off? There are some major financial consequences for both local property taxpayers, but also for the state to consider. And I'm not casting a judgment on the benefits or the detriment of doing that. I'm just saying these are some pretty significant things that is not part of the that are not part of the charge of this commission.
I think that's why we're having a study committee and not voting on it today. Because there are a lot of things to look into. And
Yeah,
we don't know half of them yet.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if Senator Alshel was next, her microphone's still on.
You have a follow-up?
I do not.
That she does not.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Madam
Thank you
Chair.
very much, Brian.
I have a question.
Oh,
Sorry.
Senator Sullivan has a
I just want to make
question.
sure I wasn't stepping on anyone's toes. Thank you for taking my question. How, you represent the NEA.
Yes.
How many members do you have that work in charter schools?
In the state of New Hampshire, none to my knowledge.
All right, thank
Yep.
you.
What's that? Thank you very much.
All right.
Unless there's somebody else waiting, then, okay.
Good morning. Thank you for hearing my testimony. My name is Heather Barker. I actually am a Republican. I work for NHSAA. I'm not here representing them. I actually feel I really need to speak to this. I have no problem with the commission to study something. I have a huge concern around the idea that if we transition all our public schools to charter schools, that $9,300, as was spoken before, would adequately meet the needs of all children. I really want to bring to your attention special education, which is what is impacting your local taxpayers, because the local town has to send money to the charter schools or staff or contracted services. As we move towards open enrollment, we have that bill right now, which again, the idea, the mechanism to fund that is by providing the local taxpayers from the school district in which the child lives will send the money. It sounds very easy. It is very complex and it's really expensive because local school districts don't actually have the staff, the paras, the speech and language, OT, PT, all of the services that were required by law under IDA to provide, to bring to, send to, transport children back to schools. You guys have heard the Republican, our Senate, our legislature has heard in the House, transportation can cost $500 a day to move a child from one place to another, okay? Hiring a special ed teacher or sending someone to a charter school can cost a school district $150 per hour. So we're talking about $160,000. I've seen these contracts. I work with school districts. So there is a consequence. And again, I fully support the idea of school choice. We have it. We have home education. We have private education. We have public education that includes public charter schools and public schools in our local communities, right? And then we have the EFA pathway. So we already have a rich variety. So yeah, I appreciate that statement earlier that families can move to New Hampshire and they will have school choice. When we think about this idea, I understand that it's a commission. There is no person representing children who are from backgrounds in special ed, ELL, our most vulnerable socioeconomically disadvantaged children. There is not a person that's going to be on this commission that's representing those children who can offer that to the group. And I think that's very important that if you're going to move forward with the commission, that you actually add one more role here, that is someone who has knowledge of that, who can do that for the commission. Because unless we have someone speaking to what the intended consequences and the unintended consequences of the decisions that may be made, and again, there's nothing wrong with looking at the benefits of something. At the same time, we should make sure that we're ensuring that we meet our obligation in New Hampshire, that we are responsible to educate every single child. That's it. Thank you.
Just clarification, you said you need somebody who have knowledge of special education.
Special educate, yes.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you.
And ELL, you said?
Yeah, someone with the background that would also typically be able to support any of our most vulnerable populations, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? That concludes the hearing on House Bill 1358. Now we'll move on to House Bill 1374. Yep.
Thank you.
How long?
Three. The sponsor for this bill is Mary Murphy. Representative Murphy? Please introduce the bill. We have a lot of speakers, so we need to set a time limit of 3 minutes.
Yeah, hopefully I'll be less than that because I'm having trouble breathing, so.
Thank you very much.
All right, so thank you, Madam Chairman and esteemed Senate colleagues on the committee. For the record, I am Representative Mary Murphy. My district is Hillsborough 27 and the beautiful and historic towns of Deering and Francistown. I'm here to introduce HB 1374 relative to procedures for withdrawal from a cooperative school district. As many of the more experienced senators here know, extricating your town from a cooperative school district agreement is a little like Hotel California. You can check out anytime you like, you just can never leave. The Articles of Agreement have no exit, no sunset clauses, no performance clauses. RSA 195, sections 25 through 31 are arguably a town's last and best hope of taking more control over their children's education and town expenses. Small towns like my two towns are consistently outvoted by larger cooperative towns on all decisions relating to the school district. In the case of Francistown, this has led to unfair treatment. During the research phase of the feasibility study that is required, Francistown discovered we have been paying $1 million more than it actually costs to educate our students. $1 million more. Further, we discovered that while teachers' salaries have been increasing 32% to 100% throughout the rest of Conval's district, the Francistown Elementary School teacher salaries have actually decreased by -6%. And this is not a trend reflected anywhere else in the entire state. This was due to the fact that Conval was sending substitute and part-time teachers to Francistown Elementary, many of whom lack seniority. My bill is simple. It's nonpartisan. In fact, the withdrawal committee was largely Democrats in the town of Francistown driving. It's a bill about freedom and liberty. Most of all, it's a bill about fairness and student well-being. It's an important bill because it affects 50% of all municipalities in the state, or roughly 117 towns. RSA 195-29 specifies 3 requirements to withdraw from a cooperative school district. Number 1, securing a majority approval of the withdrawing town's voters. 2, securing state board education approval for the feasibility and suitability of the withdrawal. And 3, securing a majority approval of the withdrawal by other cooperative town voters. HB 1374 seeks only to eliminate this third requirement, other towns' permission, because it's unfair to students in the withdrawing town. Everyone needs to stay focused on what's in the student's best interests. That is the point of the second requirement, the feasibility and suitability study. That's why I retain this requirement. I also increased the requirement for the withdrawing town to secure a supermajority to make sure there is sufficient support for the new district from the townspeople. If the State Board of Education has deemed it feasible, and a supermajority of the withdrawing town's voters support withdrawal, voters in other cooperative towns should not interfere with parental rights and student well-being, but they are. In 2024, 81% of Francistown voters approve withdrawal. The State Board of Education approved a very thorough and well-documented feasibility and suitability study by the Francistown Withdrawal Committee, a largely Democrat but nonpartisan committee. The withdrawal was thwarted by only 82 votes by the other cooperative school district towns. Francistown had to restart the process at great expense and time and with equally uncertain outcome. Francistown had the motivated parents and the financial wherewithal to go through this process twice. How many of the 117 other towns this bill affects would be successful in a similar endeavor? In fact, Mason, which is one of the other small towns that did in fact successfully withdraw at some point, it took 6 years and multiple attempts. And only after Mason's elementary school was about to be deemed, was about to be condemned because of its condition, did the district realize, oh, we need to let them go because otherwise we're going to have to fix it. So in closing, I ask you to vote ought to pass on HB 1374. I like to compare the situation to a divorce. If you were in an abusive relationship and took the decision to divorce for the sake of your children, would you want the in-laws you've been financially supporting to have a say in your departure? As I previously stated, it's a nonpartisan bill that puts students' best interests as the highest priority, a priority I know that all of you share. Thank you. With permission, I'll handle some questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the committee members? Senator Abbott?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for taking my question. You said that the community that you represent attempted to withdraw, and it was short by 82 votes. What was the voter turnout in the?
As with most small towns, it was under what we normally have in a federal election. However, it was large. It was large for the for a town election. I think it was. I don't have the exact figure. I can get you that figure, but it was in the mid hundreds.
Do you know the percentage of registered voters that showed up?
I think it was probably around. Well, I don't want to guess it now. I'll get you the exact number later today.
Thank you.
Senator Archila?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for taking my question. So the situation where one town wants to, after many years, withdraw from a cooperative district is not unusual. I've had a couple in my district too. So we've all been down this road. One of the things that I'm not seeing in here is it's more than just withdrawing. Because at this point, most of the SAUs are mature at this and have invested in capital campaigns, have built schools, have built additions, and that is a cooperative school responsibility. And so if a town were to withdraw from a cooperative school, where in here does the assessment for what their responsibility is to finish paying off their portion of whatever the capital investiture was while they were still a part of it? Because I don't think it would be fair for them to walk away from that responsibility, right?
Actually, that's a very good question. Thank you for asking it. RSA 195, I believe it's :31, defines in some detail how liabilities and assets are going to be handled with regard to a withdrawing town. And the fact of the matter is that you have to be, the town that's withdrawing has to be willing to forfeit the possibly tens of millions of dollars in equity that they have in those other buildings. In the case of Francistown, Conval has no debt. It's already been paid off by the townspeople of Francistown, among other towns. So there's no debt that Francistown would walk away with. However, Francistown is being made to pay again for the elementary school that is within their town's boundaries. You know, it would be obviously a prorated share, and it would not include the 50% that the state of New Hampshire paid for. But nevertheless, you know, you're asking them to give up the equity in these other buildings and all, you know, the 8 other towns in Conval, but making them pay for their buildings. So it's a patently unfair RSA, just like the Articles of Agreement have been written in such a way that they are a Hotel California. And I wanted to keep this simple because, you know, I used to be the largest independent wealth manager in the state of New Hampshire. I managed almost $1 billion, and so I saw a lot of divorces, and some of them were pretty messy. And sometimes, in order to protect the children, the parent would walk away from vast amounts of wealth, you know, because it was all about the children, and that's kind of where Francistown is at this point. They're willing to walk away from tens of millions of dollars of equity in these other school buildings They will get a portion of the contingency funds if Conval doesn't spend them down faster than Francistown can extricate itself. However, you know, the law already specifies how things like debt and assets will be distributed in the case of a withdrawing town. So I did not address that in this particular bill. I was trying to keep it simple to try and get it passed. And don't be surprised if I circle back in the next term to try and remediate the patent unfairness of RSA 195.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Aubrey Freeman? You have 3 minutes.
Okay. Madam Chair, committee members, Aubrey Friedman, I live in Bridgewater. The divorce reference is perfect because, and I have it in my notes, but I'm going to skip that because I agree. Why make a small town that wants to break away stay in the relationship they don't want? It doesn't serve their residents any longer. Okay, I want to talk about, my school district, SAU 108, we did manage to break away from the newfound SAU 4. And all the I read the minority report on this bill, and several things mentioned that could be problems. They haven't been. We're at the end of our first year right now, and things like they said, resources would be a problem. Actually, we're sharing resources with SAU 4 and the Plymouth with tuitioning. And also, they said that the admin costs would go up. And actually, our superintendent, we share with the Sunapee. So we didn't need a full-time. And they're using some of the extra, like art and music. That's an agreement with SAU 4. So these things are not happening. And then also, when it comes to the students, actually, Bridgewater Hebron Village District School is actually always has been above the state average, and they're continuing. They just got the blue ribbon for distinguished school. So the students are also definitely no worse off. So all the things that they said would happen did not happen in our case. I can't say that would be for every small, 3 towns broke away from the 7 towns co-op, but it didn't happen with us. And again, I think it's a good thing for the taxpayers because you have a smaller base. You actually, local control is just 3 towns now rather than 7. So they have actually more control over how the education tax dollars are spent. And it's actually more educational options for the parents because the middle school kids can stay at Bridgewater Hebron. They're making it from K5 to K8 every year, you're adding in it. So they can stay there or go to Memorial Middle School. So there's the option. And for the high school students, they can go to Plymouth or Newfound at this point, through tuitioning agreements. And I think that will continue after the tailing years are done. So it's good for taxpayers and it's more options for parents. And those are the reasons I support the bill.
Thank you. Questions from the committee members? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have anybody else signed up. Is there somebody in the audience? I see hands up there. Mr. Christina?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, members of the committee. My apologies for not signing in. I was across the street at a hearing. School boards, Barrett Christina, New Hampshire School Boards Association, we have a lot of concerns with this bill. This has been an issue before the education committees, both in the House and the Senate, for 5-6 years now. The current version of RSA 195-29 was a bipartisan compromise out of House Education, essentially, back in 2023. I worked with Representative Cordelli, Representative Myler, Representative Luno, and at the time, still Chairman Ladd, to come up with the process that you have before you where, there's a vote locally, but then there's a vote within the other towns, almost as a stopgap or a safeguard as well, too. The other aspect that NHSBA has significant concerns with is that by allowing making it easier for these communities to withdraw from the cooperative school district. And I understand the rationale as to why they want to do so. You're creating more administrative work. We've had a lot of bills over the last couple of sessions in both chambers talking about having too many administrators, too many school administrative units, too many central office staff. Well, if you allow towns to withdraw from a cooperative school district, you're going from one annual meeting to 2 annual meetings, from one collective bargaining agreement to 2 collective bargaining agreements, from one budget cycle to 2 budget cycles. That's more administrative work for the administrators, presuming that the withdrawing district stays or remains within its current school administrative unit. There are certainly examples over the last 20 years or so where the cooperative school district has withdrawn, or the town has withdrawn from the cooperative school district, and the next step often is to go on and create their own school administrative unit or their own SAU, because they want their own superintendent, they want their own principal, and that board wants to be responsible for hiring those people. I understand those concerns. I do want to put a little bit of a damper, though, on the marriage analogy. Yes, to some degree, it's a marriage, but this marriage, with respect to cooperative school districts, comes with a prenuptial agreement. The prenuptial agreement are to some degree found within the statute about who has to pay for what upon withdrawal and who's responsible for the bond. And but the other aspect of the prenuptial agreement are the articles of agreement that the voters in all the towns of the cooperative school district agreed to at one point. So, if it takes both parties to create the cooperative school district and the voters of all the communities to create the cooperative school district, we think it's reasonable that it should take the voters of all the communities to dissolve the cooperative school district. And I will say, I tried to do some quick research. I couldn't find any briefly, but since the law, as it stands now, was written in 2020, I think there's been at least 1 or 2 towns that have successfully withdrawn from a cooperative school district without it only being, without the vote only occurring within the town that's seeking to withdraw. So with that, thank you again for letting me speak late, Madam Chair, and happy to answer any questions.
That's your 3 minutes. Any questions? Senator Abbas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You said that there was some comprehensive changes made in 2023.
Correct.
What were those changes?
Certainly. So primarily, what is currently paragraph 1, 2, 3, and 4. I worked with the School Boards Association, worked with leadership of both parties and House Education to come up with RSA 195-29, paragraphs 1, 2, 3, and 4 about if a majority of the voters present and voting in the town withdrawing vote in the affirmative, and a majority of the voters present in the entire cooperative, then the withdrawal goes through. Paragraph 3 primarily was sort of the check or the balance to allow the other towns not seeking to withdraw to have a say in the vote to go to the withdrawal. So basically, the town seeking to withdraw, if they had a majority vote, that would be sort of stopped, if you will, if there was a majority vote in the remaining towns of the cooperative.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Alchilli, you had a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for taking my question. And I want to go back to part of your testimony where you were talking about at the formation of these cooperative school districts, that every town, let's say there are 6 in the town, 6 in the district, all 6 of those towns had to vote in the affirmative in order to form that district in the first place. And it was not arbitrary either, because if 5 out of the 6 said yes and 1 said no, actually the process would now, if I remember correctly, the process needs to start all over again, because it's not just who's left standing. It actually has to be a deliberative process in which to bring forward to the voters and explain why, well, now we're going to do it with 5 versus 6.
Right. Thank you for the question, Senator. I believe that's accurate. A lot of these co-ops were formed in the early 60s, and the Articles of Agreement were drafted initially. Then the other, and I believe that was accurate. If you were seeking to form a 5-town co-op and 1 town said no, My understanding is that it wasn't then a four-town co-op. You had to sort of restart the process.
Right.
You know, the other interesting thing too is, you know, at the time these articles of agreement were initially drafted in the early 60s, there were not many attorneys doing school law at the time. It really wasn't a niche, you know, for attorneys. So a lot of the articles of agreement look very similar, co-op to co-op to co-op, because there are only one or two attorneys that were really drafting them.
May I follow up? So the way this bill is written is that if one particular town wants to withdraw from a cooperative agreement, only they vote on it. Whereas if we were to rewrite this so that if one town wanted to withdraw, they would need the permission of all of the original members of that cooperative district who voted collectively that this one particular group of towns were matched in a particular way that brought them to voting them in. They didn't vote in individually, right?
That's my understanding, yes.
And just to clarify, when we have school district votes for cooperative districts, each member town of that cooperative district has an equal vote, even though they may come from a different town. They all vote on the same cooperative district.
Correct. Thank you for the question, Senator. Yes, each town is represented on the school board. Depending on the nature of the school board, it will be more a proportional representation, depending on the size of the towns. One town may have 3 votes, the other town may have 2 votes, the other town may have 1 vote, so on and so forth. But yes, each town is represented and has a member on the cooperative school board to represent. I mean, you know, to some degree, they're representing the interests of that community, but I try to assure these school board members that if you're on a cooperative school district, your responsibilities to all the kids in all the communities and the entire budget co-op wide.
Thank you.
What's that?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else? 1 minute.
My name is Catherine Peschke. I'm from Croydon, New Hampshire. We withdrew from Newport. We started it, I believe, in 2009, and it took us to 2012. Newport is the lowest or the second lowest ranked in the school district. Parents should have, I believe schools exist to suit parents and students, not school employees and not unions. Parents should have the right to easily withdraw from failing school districts. It's helped Croydon. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do I dare ask, is there anybody else? This concludes the hearing on House Bill 1374. And we'll open up the hearing on House Bill 1448. And remember to, if you have testimony that's written, give it to our aide here, or may cut your comments to 2 to 3 minutes, because we have a lot to go through here.
Good. Stuck.
You are Representative Morse?
Belcher.
Go ahead.
Good morning.
Sorry, we need to open the hearing for this bill.
I did.
There we are.
Sorry, I was doing what I'm told.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I am happy to be here with you this morning. I am not Representative Morris. I am Representative Belcher, Carroll District 4. I was happy to sort of take over this bill of sorts beginning a month or so ago when it was introduced first in House Education Committee. It's a very simple bill. Adds one line, I'll read it to you. The curriculum also shall be prohibited from including any lectures, lesson plans, and other educational materials provided by or created by the World Economic Forum. So I was particularly happy to be able to take over this bill then, because only one day before this bill was introduced in House Education, the news broke straight from Davos at the World Economic Forum that I believe it was the AFT, American Federation of Teachers, was partnering with the World Economic Forum to bring World Economic Forum materials and curriculum to schools in the United States. Why is that an issue? Well, that's an issue for a few reasons. First of all, the World Economic Forum is, by their own doctrine, fundamentally oppositional to the system of government the United States and the state of New Hampshire has. It is an organization that is, you might call it globalist, but it actually goes farther than simply being globalist. It is anti-sovereignty. It does not believe in the sovereignty of nations. So in that matter, it's not only oppositional to a form of government, it's oppositional to the oath of office that we all take to uphold the state and federal constitutions. They actively are promoting the doing the will in the line of China. And it should go out saying, but I'll say it anyway, China, despite our economic connections, is an adversary of the United States of America. They have been caught repeatedly, just in the last year or two, they have been caught manufacturing biological weapons in California and Nevada in undercover labs. They have been caught manufacturing nerve gas in an undercover California lab. They have been repeatedly caught importing agricultural warfare agents through our colleges and universities. It's widely thought that the Chinese government might be responsible for the devastation of the Florida citrus industry, and they flood our country with fentanyl. They are pursuing an economic war against us as well. And the World Economic Forum, particularly their ex-chairman, Chairman Schwab, has been deeply, deeply a part of the rise of China, the opening up of China, and pushing the Chinese narrative, things such as the Global South movement, where China has found itself, despite its economic position, being exempted in international treaties and agreements from the sorts of economic constraints that are placed on advanced countries like the United States, despite the fact that they are themselves quite an advanced economy at this point. So they're pushing lines that benefit China to the detriment of the United States in this sort of adversarial contest that we have. Now, Chairman Schwab, it should be emphasized that he liked to give his lectures at the World Economic Forum sitting next to a bust of Vladimir Lenin. That should tell you a little bit about where their sort of ideology is heading. So very simply, their materials, the things that they develop, are oppositional to the very foundations of a republic, of the United States of America, and the state of New Hampshire, and the rights of our citizens. So they reasonably ought to be excluded from providing curriculum to our children. Thank you.
Just 3 minutes. Any questions from the committee members? Senator Altshuler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for taking my question. So did you bring this curriculum with you? So do you have a compare and contrast document so we know what you're talking about?
No, I have not actually seen the latest curriculum that I referenced. It was a news announcement, a co-announcement between the World Economic Forum and the AFT. It came out perhaps a month or so ago. I have seen previous organizational alignment. They've worked previously with, for instance, UNESCO, as well as the NEA Foundation, I believe it is, to bring in such content as global citizenship that promotes the idea that students should not consider themselves first as citizens of New Hampshire or America, but citizens of the globe, where the whole globe's problems are all of a sudden theirs, and they shouldn't find primarily focused on the nation in which they're in.
May I follow up?
Follow up?
Okay, so with your assertions about global citizenry, do you have that in curriculum, or is that just something you're gleaning from news articles? We're looking for some testimony, that some, hard facts that go along with your assertions.
Sure, thank you. I don't have it with me at the moment. I can look for it. I have, as a part of my history on House education, seen multiple New Hampshire curriculums about global citizenship that appear to be derived from some combination of UNESCO and the World Economic Forum.
Last follow-up?
Another follow-up.
Yes, thank you. So you do have New Hampshire curriculums that you assert kind of came from the World's Economic Forum. And is there a confirmation from these schools that, yes, this curriculum came from this source material? Or,
I believe the curriculum that I've referenced was stuff that was brought to us as a committee by concerned parents. It's things that I've seen in emails that have been brought to me from their schools, photocopies, things of that nature.
so it's in
I
the House
can't-
Committee's record?
Email
Is that what you're
records,
saying?
records. I'm not sure if it was submitted to the clerk. I'm sure it's something that I could find. I can't verify off the top of my head that it came directly from the World Economic Forum versus perhaps UNESCO, but I was using that as an example of the kind of things that they're bringing in, the kind of things that they stand for as an organization, and what we can expect down the road as they are now partnered with the AFT to bring curriculum in.
One more. So what I'm hearing is that you don't have any specific curriculum to show us. Any curriculum that may or may not have been brought to the House Committee is still in the House Committee folder. And there's some confabulation with UNESCO. And now you have asserted to us that you have read in a newspaper article that AFT says they are going to use some or recommend some of the curriculum, but where is that? Where is that? Do you have that newspaper article?
I would
Or
just
is
say,
this
no, I would not characterize anything you just said as correct or reflective of my testimony.
Then correct me. Tell me, you did confabulate UNESCO with World Economic Forum. Now they're intertwined and AFT is somehow part of this, but you don't have anything for us yet. I'm waiting for the links on this date and this person said this and we have
You're correct that I don't have forensic records with me. I can provide some of this material via email. I'm sure I can pull some of it up.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicholas. Is there a Nicholas in the audience? I think it is Nicholas. What do you think?
It's like Nicholas to me, Nicholas Hobart.
Okay. Pardon?
No, 1448.
Nicholas Hoffman.
You may have signed up for the wrong one.
Okay.
Go to
Let's have
Huntsman.
Representative Polizov.
Good morning,
minutes.
Madam Chair, members of committee. For the record, my name is Yuri Polzov, representing Merrimack 10 beautiful towns of Hooksett and Dunbarton. I'm here in support of this bill. I think Representative Mike Belcher explained the need very well. Values of the World Economic Forum do not match values of New Hampshire. Goals of that organization are counterproductive to us. So we should protect our school system from any future curriculum that they will come out with. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Senator Altshelder?
Yes, thank you. So in a blanket ban on any of this material, how does that affect the very robust Model UN program that we have going on statewide?
This bill is specifically about curriculum provided by the World Economic Forum. It doesn't affect materials provided by other organizations that we are currently using.
You don't think it's connected?
Was that Mrs.
Yeah, yeah.
Senator Altshelder?
My follow-up was, do you not think it's connected?
I think the bill is very specific. If in future we will find that something else is connected to destroying American values in our kids and teaching some curriculum deriving values from authoritarian countries. And I am somebody who escaped from a country without freedom, with authoritarian rule. I'm very much concerned with it. So maybe there will be need for future legislation, but this one is specifically dealing with the World Economic Forum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for taking my question, Representative. Are you aware that on the AFT.org website, there's a paragraph that says, and we are partnering with the World Economic Forum to create a curriculum that will lead to good jobs and solid careers in U.S. manufacturing?
My understanding is that's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else who needs to talk to 1448? You want to speak on this one? Okay. You've got 2 minutes this time.
I
because
don't think I
You're
need
running
that, too.
very, very short
Yes.
here.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Senate Education Committee. I was not intending to speak to this, but after the last comment, I think I want to expand a little bit. My name is Deborah Howes, the president of the American Federation of Teachers, New Hampshire. And having heard American Federation of Teachers brought up a couple of times, I just want to clarify that the American Federation of Teachers did announce that it is working with industry leaders from around the world to develop career and technical education curriculum to share with any school in the United States that wants such curriculum to use to help its students learn and thrive and gain employment after school. If our schools in New Hampshire think that would be a bad thing to have from industry leaders around the world, we could make that illegal for them to use. But that is the partnership that was announced at Davos, is they're working with industry leaders from around the world, including European leaders, including American leaders who were at Davos. That is the whole mystery paragraph.
Thank you
Okay,
very much.
you're welcome.
Anybody else? Seeing none. It concludes the hearing on House Bill 1448. And we're opening the hearing on 1268. I know that a lot of people want to speak on this one, so you really have to have, if you have your testimony written down, give it to us and give us a summary. Other than that, it's going to go way over time here. So, Representative Noble, you're the sponsor?
I am.
Okay, go ahead.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Krista Noble, and I represent Hillsborough District 2, the town of Bedford. With the help of many home educators, both past and present, from all around the state, I bring you House Bill 1268, the Home Education Freedom Act. HB 1268 is a thoughtful update to New Hampshire's home education framework, one rooted in trust, flexibility, and respect for families. At the heart of this bill is the recognition that parents have a natural right to direct the education of their children. It affirms that right while also clarifying the appropriate role of the state, not to manage or supervise home education programs, but to ensure that families are free to pursue them without unnecessary interference. My original intent behind this bill was to address the concern within the home education community that EFAs could lead to further regulations on all private education, including home education. While EFAs and home education are already two separate education pathways, they are often conflated because they have similar requirements around homeschooling. My thought was to create a very distinct difference between those homeschooling under 194F and those who are home educating under 193A by removing regulations on 193A. This could potentially lead to fewer homeschoolers enrolling in the EFA program. Under this bill, the one-time notification requirement is no longer needed, except when withdrawing from a public school or when accessing district programs.
About 11 or 12 states don't require families to notify the government at all when they choose to home educate. Those states rely on existing education and child welfare laws rather than universal reporting. HB 1268 would adopt that same approach. Annual assessments would be optional, allowing parents to decide when and how to monitor their child's progress. HB 1268 explicitly states that participation in home education in and of itself cannot be used as evidence of neglect. This is an important clarification, and it does not weaken child protection laws. Reports of abuse or neglect based on specific, articulable facts remain fully enforceable. It prevents the misuse of those systems based solely on a family's lawful educational choice, and at the same time introduces accountability for knowingly false or bad faith reports. Additionally, the bill provides clear guardrails regarding home entry and records access, reaffirming constitutional protections while still allowing lawful investigation under established standards, such as probable cause. The bill contains some familiar language that is also in a couple other bills that you have before your committee.
Could you summarize the rest of it?
1155, this bill also includes that repeal of HEAC. It also includes the piece about equal access. I brought that in to address a request from one of the homeschool groups around the PSAT. So I just put it in same language in both places. Let's see. In closing, New Hampshire has long valued individual liberty. HB 1268 is a natural extension of that by ensuring that existing constitutional protections like parental rights, due process, and privacy are fully respected in the context of home education. It trusts families, supports educational diversity, and brings our laws in line with the realities of modern education. I respectfully ask that you move ought to pass.
Thank you.
I'm happy to take questions. There are people behind me that might be able to answer better than I, so
Well,
just keep that in mind. I may pass.
Let's see, any questions for Representative Noble, Senator Archuleta?
Yes, thank you very much for taking my question. So the crux of this is to segregate out homeschooling families that use EFAs from homeschooling families that do not.
Thank you for the question, Senator
And-
Altschuler. Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and who asked for this?
There were home educators that asked for this.
Right, thanks.
You're welcome.
You have a question?
I
Senator
have a
Sullivan?
comment. I know how hard you worked on this for months and months and months to make sure that you got it right, and you brought in all the stakeholders for their input on this. So I just want to say, I know this has been a long time coming and a rough couple of years. So just thank you for the work that you've done on this bill.
Thank you, Senator Sullivan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Doris Johansi? So 3 minutes or less, unless you can summarize your testimony.
Chairman Ward, and members of the committee, I'm Doris Hohensee. I'm from Nashua. I homeschool 6 kids in New Hampshire. My grandchildren are being homeschooled in New Hampshire. This law changes a privilege into a right. For free speech, we don't have to come to the state and get a permission slip to exercise free speech. This helps homeschoolers educate their kids without permission slips from the state. There are going to be a lot of parents behind me, or some of them, that are afraid to homeschool without permission slips. And that's a reflection on the state agency, the DCYF. There's a lot of protections in this bill, hopefully enough so that they feel that they can exercise their right without a permission slip. We've been groomed and conditioned for 36 years. It's time that we exercise our right, and I hope you'll vote this off to pass. I'm glad that the EFAs are going to get the same protection as home educators from DCYF, and that language was included there about a neglected child, and I'm glad that we have equal protection. And the HEAC is past its prime, it needs to go, and the rulemaking should go with it, because it's a simpler law. We don't have probation, termination, and all that. We don't need a grievance, we don't need a HEAC. Thank you.
Any questions? Senator Altshuler?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for taking my question. Homeschooling is no easy feat, so kudos to you. When you chose to home educate your children, had they previously been in a public school?
No, they had not.
Okay. And may I follow up?
Follow up.
And regardless of, how you went about it with each of them, I assume they're ascending ages, maybe a twin or two, I don't know. But nonetheless, did you send the letter to the school department that said, I'm choosing to educate my children at home?
Thank you for your question. I spoke with my district. I
Yeah.
had members of my district in my house, but I never complied with the unconstitutional home ed law. I came to the legislature for 5 or 6 years, and I told them why it was unconstitutional and why I couldn't comply. And I was more than happy to talk to them about what I was doing.
Yeah.
And when they visited my house, they offered me a job in their gifted and learning program. So they left me alone.
Okay, so you never submitted just the letter that said, I'm choosing not to use public education. I'm taking my children out of the mix.
When I started, we had regulations under manifest education hardships, and that was fine. We didn't do notification. I did it 4 years before 1990.
Before the notification
That's
kicked
when,
in.
That's when I
Got
worked
it.
with my district, and we had an accommodation.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Darren Jones?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Darren Jones. I'm an attorney with Homeschool Legal Defense Association. HSLDA represents member families nationwide. We have many families in New Hampshire. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of this House bill. New Hampshire's long recognized homeschooling as a lawful alternative to public school attendance. I know this personally. I grew up in New Hampshire, public school, then private, then homeschooled. And this is not my first time testifying in front of the Senate Education Committee. Back in 1990, when I was a 12th grade homeschool student, I came here and testified both in the House and the Senate Education Committee. We believe that that amendment was needed because in the 1980s, under the rules, homeschooling could be approved or disapproved by the school board. And again, I experienced this personally. My parents' first request to homeschool was turned down by our school district. In our association's work around the country, we see states with high regulation, moderate, like New Hampshire, low regulation. And laws in these states usually have a progression, kind of like what New Hampshire has the opportunity to do with this House bill. It starts off with approval. Massachusetts and Rhode Island are still stuck in that mode. And then states usually move to something like New Hampshire, where you have to do a notice and some sort of evaluation. That's still what I have to do as a homeschool dad in Virginia. But more and more states are moving to what this House bill does, which is it just provides you homeschool your child. And this is not a red state issue. It's not a blue state issue. You've got Illinois and New Jersey are the same as Texas and Oklahoma. The states recognize parents have a right to homeschool their children without first putting their child in some sort of government registry. And many of these states, like this House bill does, allow parents to submit an optional notice of intent, which can be helpful in certain instances. I've helped a number of families get Social Security benefits by filing that optional notice of intent. So if you need to, you can. And that's what HB 1268 does. But it recognizes that the success of homeschooling is because of parental involvement. It's not because you have the school district looking over your shoulder when you file that notice. We believe HB 1268 maintains clear legal authorization for home education, but it simplifies the structure and it strengthens homeschool freedom. It puts New Hampshire in the growing nationwide trend to recognize the rights of parents on this. So for these reasons, HSLDA would respectfully urge the committee to recommend this House bill as amended.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Any questions from the committee members? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Perronel?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Katie Peternell. I represent the towns of Wolfboro and Tuftonboro, Carroll District 6. I home educated all 4 of my children. One of them just asked if I would homeschool my granddaughter. So that's kind of proof that it works. What I want to say really about this bill is not much more than what Representative Noble already said, but I really commend Representative Noble for introducing this bill. Not only because I witnessed the incredible amount of thought and effort and work that she put into this bill, but because this is how home education should have been written, the laws should have been written 36 years ago. Parents are the primary educators of their children. They have the ultimate responsibility, and the default should be that parents are educating their children. School comes second. That's the second choice. Unfortunately, in New Hampshire, we have compulsory attendance laws, which means the default is that your children attend public school unless they are given quote unquote permission to choose an alternative option. So this bill really did come about as a response to concerns and requests on the Home Education Advisory Council, because there was a lot of concern that legislators, the public schools could no longer understand the difference between home education under 193A and what looks like home education under 194F, because homeschooling is not explicit in 194F. So one way to differentiate is to completely eliminate the requirement to submit these assessments, because under 194F, they copied the assessment requirements from 193A, which definitely did blur the lines. I do want to follow up briefly on the Home Education Advisory Council, because I introduced House Bill 1155, which repeals the Home Education Advisory Council. And I did testify that it is a misuse of taxpayer funds, because 2 department staff need to attend those meetings. And I attended remotely, and I attended remotely for the March meeting, and I had a very glitchy connection. And I did not realize that at that March meeting, there were 3 department staff in attendance. So I do continue to think that the Home Education Advisory Council is a misuse of taxpayer funds. So just in conclusion, while other states are placing burdensome demands and stripping away natural rights, New Hampshire has an opportunity to actually restore these rights. The function of government is to protect our rights, and this bill does just that.
Thank you. Any questions? Senator Abbas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for taking my question. You alluded to HB 1155. They do repeal the Home Education Advisory Council, both this and 1268, but they also both would amend RSA 193-A:3. So I guess, is the definition that's in the bill that you introduced last week still needed if we were to pass what's before us right now?
No, it would not be needed if you were to pass this bill with that provision included.
Thank you.
Senator Altshuler?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative, for taking my question. So when you were educating your children, was this before the 90s or after, when we changed the rules a little bit?
That's a trick question, right? How old am I? No, sorry. I did not start homeschooling my children until 2000, but I was around to witness Representatives Hall being packed as there were attempts to strip our rights away. And when you are trying to take away rights, people come out in full force. We have this bill granting people's rights, and we're like trying to it's like pulling teeth, trying to get people to say, hey, we want to give you your rights back. They don't want to fight as much to get their rights back.
May I follow up, Madam Chair?
Follow up.
So when you were when you made a choice to home educate your children, did you send a letter to your district and say, my children are, Margaret, Matthew, and whatever else their names are, I'm not drawing a blank right now, Ben and Daryl, and I'm withdrawing them, and we will be home educating. It's a 2-sentence line, so did you send that?
Yes, I complied with the law, but
Okay.
the law was much more burdensome because we had to do something like, we had to photocopy all of the table of contents of our books that we were going to be using and submit those to our participating agency. We could have been put on probation. At that time, it wasn't that popular, it wasn't quite as popular or well-known as it is now, and we had to keep copies of the law with us in case we were asked at the grocery store why our children were with us during the school day.
May I follow up?
One more.
Thank you. So it's just a curious statement because you and I have homeschooled at exactly the same time, and I just filled out the letter, sent it in. I don't recall because we followed the letter of the law and the spirit to that because I was absolutely shocked at how little the state was interested in what we were doing as homeschooling parents. I know I did the reviews and hired people to do an assessment of my children, which you may or may not have done, but it was certainly not required. And there's no requirement. There was no requirement. Nobody was checking up on it. I did not have to turn it in, and neither did you.
No, we did have to turn it in.
Well, I don't know who you turned it into, but I looked for 18 people to turn it into, and that's not part of the law. So I just want to clarify that maybe you had a district that was giving you erroneous information because that's not what was required of homeschool families.
No, they were submitted and we could have been put on probation if we did not meet their requirements.
Thank you. Any other? No. Thank you very much. Kathy Pesky? Pesky?
Legs are a little stiff.
Sorry we made you wait so long.
That's okay. Thank you, Kathy Pesky from Croydon, New Hampshire. I am of the opinion, to sum it up quickly, Pink Floyd, leave our kids alone. I homeschooled my daughter all the way through. New Hampshire schools, 37% of the students read at proficient levels, and 44% of the students perform math at proficient levels. Homeschoolers typically score 15 to 25% higher. Looking at homeschoolers is like looking at the spaghetti boiling over on the stove when you have a chimney fire. Just leave our kids alone. My daughter scored a 94 on the high set. I'm sorry, a 98 on the high set. Well, let me see. A 96 on the high set. Passing in New Hampshire is, I believe it's 45 out of 100. So homeschoolers are doing well. Just leave them alone. Thank you.
Wait a minute, somebody might have a question for you.
Yes.
Does anybody have a question? No, thank you very much. Rachel? McComish?
Good morning, Madam Chair and Committee. Thank you so much for taking the time to hear me. My name is Rachel McCormack, and I'm here today in support of HB 1268. I want to be clear, this bill is often framed as just about homeschooling, but for many families, it's about something much bigger. The ability to make decisions for our children when the system meant to support them no longer does. I'm a parent of a child with special education needs who requires an IEP. Like many families, I trusted the system. I followed the process. I advocated, collaborated, and gave the district every opportunity to provide what my child is legally entitled to. And still, my child was left without appropriate supports. When that happens, parents are put in an impossible position. We're told to keep working within a system that isn't working, while our children fall further behind academically, emotionally, and developmentally. That's where HB 1268 matters. The bill doesn't force anyone to homeschool. It doesn't take anything away from public schools. What it does is remove unnecessary barriers for families who have already reached the point where they have no other viable option. For some families, homeschooling isn't a lifestyle choice. It's a last resort to protect their children. And when parents reach that point, they should not face additional red tape, delays, or interference from the very systems that they are trying to leave behind. We talk a lot about meeting children where they are, but we also need to meet families where they are. Parents know when their child is struggling, parents know when something isn't working, and parents should have the authority to act without needing permission from a system that's already failed their child. HB 1268 is about restoring that balance. It's about trust, it's about flexibility, and most importantly, it's about making sure no child is stuck in an environment that isn't serving them. I urge you to support this bill, not just for homeschool families, but for every parent who may one day find themselves with no other option. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Questions from anybody? Senator Altschuler?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for sharing your experience here with the committee. So you are currently homeschooling your child right now?
It's something we're having to look into due to the difficulties for getting my son his IEP services under Faith and Idea with his school in Seabrook, New Hampshire.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so you're looking into it as an option?
Yes.
Okay, understood. Okay, thank you very much. I
Thank
appreciate it.
you.
Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Deborah Sullivan?
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'll try to be brief, but I, as much as anybody else, I'm for no regulation. It would be great. I'm just not sure that this bill is really going to accomplish that. So I'm asking to vote no on this. You know, the fact of the matter is that we still have, you know, compulsory attendance law on the books. So that means, you know, DCYF has to do their job. You know, if they come to your house, and if they have to assess, are you homeschooling or not? I mean, it's not a question of, we know you're homeschooling, but we want you to produce this paper. They have to find out, are you homeschooling? What are you going to have to produce, you know, as some kind of a paper trail that up until now, you know, if somebody has a letter that they can produce and it just you can shut things down pretty quickly. But if this bill gets rid of that, and there was something about you can optional notify if you want to, you know, get equal access. I think that, you know, homeschoolers now can do that, you know, without, you know, sending some notification to the state. You know, they have a private option to, you know, send to, you know, a participating agency. But this bill doesn't say anything about the private option to do that at this point. As far as the educational neglect section of this bill, you know, what happens when, you know, the legislature doesn't have as many friendly, you know, legislators towards homeschoolers, and when things flip, and, you know, there might be a lot of blowback about something like that being in this bill that doesn't really have to do with home education. And also, somebody said HEAC was not really needed right now. Maybe that's true, but then again, when this legislature flips, and they're going to be asking for more accountability, is HEAC going to be put back or just the rules? So, and also the liability section, it's a good thought, but, you know, I think in real life, most, you know, families don't have lots of money to be, you know, prosecuting people with, you know, for making false accusations. So I respectfully ask you to vote no.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Emery Banfield.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Anne Marie Banfield for the record, parent advocate in New Hampshire. I think this bill is important, so I do support it in terms of making a path easier for parents to homeschool. I think anytime we can make it easier for parents to make the kind of shift that they need to make. I did ask a parent in the audience to weigh in on why she was searching and looking for an alternative. Because that's also who benefits from this bill. It's not just people who are currently homeschooling, but it's people who are looking possibly to homeschool. Most parents do want to stay in a public school when they have their kids in a public school. Sometimes these issues rise up and it's handled within the school and the parent stays. But there are times where, in this case, a parent's looking for an alternative. A lot of times, as in the case of the parent in the audience, they have been fighting with their school for years, not just a month, not just a couple weeks, but sometimes years to make the improvements that they need for their kids. I have suggested to school boards, people in the school, to conduct exit interviews of the teachers, of families who leave, because I think once you know the problem, you can fix the problem. Sanborn did that recently. They passed a policy where they're going to interview families who leave. There was a motion at Seabrook last couple weeks ago to interview teachers as they leave. And the school board member who made the motion was the only one who supported it. The rest of them did not. And bringing that to you, I'm just trying to, so you understand that these parents are putting forth all kinds of efforts to resolve these issues and stay in the schools. And oftentimes they're running into brick wall after brick wall. And again, bravo to the schools who work with these parents and keep these kids in the school and find ways to help them. But there are these times where this is not working. So I think that something like this is going to help. These parents have to pay for advocates, for lawyers. And the school just, takes their taxpayer-funded lawyer to all these hearings. And it's hurdle after hurdle after hurdle. My point is this is the kind of legislation we need to remove some of those hurdles. And so I ask you to support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee members? Senator Altshuler?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Banfield. Just a quick clarification of something you just testified to. And I'm not sure if that was your intent, but are you aware that you do not have to hire a lawyer in order to homeschool a child? You can just do it.
Correct. That
Okay.
was not my intention. My intention was that they do have to hire, as they're going through the process of trying to resolve the issues in the school before they make that decision.
And again,
Thank you for clarification.
nobody has to hire attorneys to go through the process in school. That's not a necessary requirement. Some people do, some people don't. And sometimes those results are exactly the same, but there's no requirement. So I want to set the record clear that that is not a requirement for accessing homeschool education.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Melissa Blasek? So if you have your testimony written, give it to us or summarize it.
Okay, I'll try. I'm Melissa Blasek. I am here representing Rebuild NH. I am a second-generation home educator myself. I did ask for this legislation to be submitted. I want to begin with a simple truth. The right to educate a child belongs to his or her parents. That right does not come from the state. It is not granted by following rules like a government form or portfolio or set of regulations. It is a natural right based on the fundamental parent-child relationship. It is a right that existed before this legislature or even government itself. And because this right is a natural right, the legislature's true role is not to restrict or place conditions on the exercise of this right, but to protect it. Under current law, the right is not being protected, it is being infringed. The law unjustly treats this fundamental right as something that must be managed and approved. Families who choose to homeschool are required to notify, maintain records, and perform specific evaluations, not because of a wrongdoing, but for exercising their right. That approach reflects a permission model where parental authority is secondary to government oversight. HB 1268 restores the proper balance. This is not just a matter of policy, it is a matter of freedom. In a free society, we practice self-governance. We take personal responsibility for ourselves and our families. Should this bill become law, I'm sure many homeschool families will continue to send in their notifications and maintain their records and do their assessments, not because they're compelled to, but because it is wise and responsible. That is how freedom works. Good practices do not require government mandates. But when those practices are mandated by law, they can be detrimental. A lack of a particular record, whether intentional or simply an oversight, can be used against a family, even when their children are thriving. That shifts the focus away from actual education and towards compliance. Across New Hampshire, homeschooling families have shared that they live with a quiet but persistent fear that their choice to educate their children could invite scrutiny. And the data helps explain why. Over a 3-year period, more than 1,500 families were investigated for educational neglect, and the vast majority, over 90%, had no findings at all. This tells us something important. It tells us that many families are being drawn into a system of oversight, not because there is evidence of harm, but because the structure itself assumes the need for it. A free society should work the other way around. Parents should be trusted, their rights should be respected, and intervention should be based on evidence and not assumption. That is why this bill is so important. Parents should be presumed innocent until proven guilty. And when investigations are triggered by bad faith reporting, families should have clear recourse to protect themselves. There is also a fairness issue. Homeschool families receive no public funding, and yet they are held to the same or higher requirements than publicly funded systems. These are families who take full responsibility for their children's education, investing their own time, energy, and resources, and that commitment should be respected. At its core, this bill is about restoring balance between trust and oversight, between freedom and responsibility, and between parents and the state. It reaffirms the simple principle: parents and not the government are primarily responsible for raising and educating their children. I ask you to vote or ought to pass on HB 1268.
Did very well with the time. Congratulations. Any questions from Senator Altshuler?
Yes, thank you very much. So, as a former member of the House, you did mention that a lack of a particular record can impede this natural right, right? But we do that in other spaces. So we require all manners of particular records in order to access our right to vote. And do we not consider that a right that should not be infringed?
I think you're kind of mixing politics here a bit. And I don't really want to get into a voting law with you, but the reality is that we have been, in New Hampshire, we have been relying on having sort of a friendly Department of Education for home educators for a long time. And that's not to say that there aren't issues, there have been issues, but we can't continue moving forward where people are simply relying on a commissioner, for instance, that understands home education and is particularly friendly to home education. We should, be changing the laws now while we have that space to do that.
May I follow up?
One follow-up.
Sure. Former Representative Blasek, do you know what unschooling is? And could you tell us a little bit about it?
I am not an expert on unschooling. I do not unschool, but my understanding is that it is a child-led approach to educating your child. It does not in itself mean no education at all by any stretch of the imagination.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Christian Green.
Hello, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Christiane Green, and I'm here in support of HB 1268. I've been a 193A homeschooler for 23 years, and I have 10 more to go. I remember the last significant change in homeschooling law. I think it was 2008 or 2012. Someone here will probably remember that, when J.R. Hull's bill kind of changed the homeschool law landscape. And I remember what a huge victory that was at that time. And I think someone else referred to it as, Katie referred to it as trying to fight tooth and nail to get people to reclaim their rights. And I think people don't remember what it was like. So they just see a fairly easy process to start homeschooling. And while I would say our current homeschooling law is not onerous in nature, I would say any administrative red tape is not appropriate, given the fundamental right of parents to direct the education of their children and the government's lack of standing and funding of these children. I would ask that you pass this particular law because in comparison to the 2008 bill, I don't think we were quite there yet with recognizing that fundamental right of parents. And I don't think we had the momentum that, Darren Jones spoke to, saying that kind of the wind of change is here. We're seeing it in a number of areas, restoring that fundamental right of parents. And this is just bringing New Hampshire law, that last little bit, into aligning those two things together and not having that disparity of still kind of being in the permission model that Melissa just referred to. So I think this is really great, and I appreciate Kristen Noble's tireless efforts to get this bill across the finish line when homeschoolers are notorious for being, it's like nailing Jell-O to a tree to get everybody to go in the same direction, right? Because we're fairly independent-minded and we want to be able to do our own thing. So I appreciate her going to those lengths. I was also trying to think of how my testimony might be different. You know, we had the previous lady, she has a special needs child. I'm a parent of 6 children, and I help run a homeschool co-op in the state since 2008. And I've never seen a family that doesn't have the best interest of their child at heart. And it's not, they're not succeeding in that endeavor by any of these administrative box checks that you have currently in our homeschooling law. And so you guys have this unique opportunity to really kind of get us, like Darren said, from the, we're not in that beginning phase of, being in a, like Rhode Island and Massachusetts that you referred to, but we're in that middle stage. And we can get it over into the next stage. And I think we're there, and you guys have the opportunity to do that. So that's
Thank you. Questions? Senator Altshuler?
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Green, for taking my question. In your testimony, you refer to the model that we have now as a permission model. And would you perhaps consider it to maybe be a notification model? Because you can't have that permission revoked. Once a parent exercises their rights as a parent, the state can't say, no, you got to send your kid to this school. That's not how any of that works.
Okay, well, it's still so it's different in the sense that our previous homeschooling law, we were, prior to the 2008 or 2012,
Yeah,
sorry,
but
that I can't remember.
we're not working with that anymore.
No, I know.
We're working with this.
Yes,
Yeah.
but you still have an item in there with end of school, end of year evaluation. Let's say I didn't value any of those 3 options, either, taking my child into the school or doing, an, state test or a nationwide test. If I don't value those as a proper tool for evaluation, I don't think you guys would be okay with that right now. So in that sense, it seems like we're still under a permission model. Do you see what I'm saying? I don't have the right to right now not do end of year evaluation in the 3 ways that you guys deem as appropriate. You know what I'm saying?
May I follow up, Madam Chair?
One follow-up.
So missing from that list is a portfolio. And in all of those, other than the child opting to take a test in a public school environment, any of those tests can be paid for and taken outside of the scope of one of the public schools. And a not insignificant number of homeschooling families take advantage of that. But those tests do not have to be then submitted to the public school. You
Correct.
just keep them.
Correct.
You do that for your own edification. nobody comes to get them.
Correct. But you're forcing that, so either I pay for a separate teacher evaluation portfolio review, or I can take a test in a public school setting, which, by the way, for test taking protocol, it's not considered appropriate to test a child outside of their learning environment. So whenever that was coming up on various homeschool bills over the year, that's never an appropriate measure. So what I'm saying is,
your
I've
opinion,
always done
yeah.
this, and I've always complied with the law. What I'm saying is, it's been a waste of money, a waste of time, and yes, I've filed it away. I've got my third child is graduating from Hillsdale this year, so I've got 3 out of college, essentially, 1 headed into college. They've all had, merit scholarships. None of those have ever been adequately measured on a, in any of these forms of evaluation, is all I'm saying.
Thank you. You have a
Thank
question?
you.
Yep. Thank you very much. We have 11 more people, and we're running very short on time. So like I said before, if you have testimony that's written down, please let us have it. You can tell your name and address and whether you're for or against, but please don't use more than 2 minutes. We're going to be here, and we can't be here because we have a time limit here. So,
Madam Chair?
yes.
May I ask a favor?
Yes.
Could we let people that have children here speak first? Would everybody be okay with that?
Well, who has a child?
We've got 5 over here.
5 children over there.
And then there's a lady walking back and forth with a baby over there too.
Okay.
So I just don't want to make.
Okay. Those with a child, please come up, one at a time. You state your name.
Hi, I'm Jessica DeSantis from Merrimack. I'm currently a home educator, and I just want to say I support this bill.
Speak a little closer to the mic.
Hi, I'm Jessica DeSantis from Merrimack, New Hampshire. I'm currently a home educator. I've been a home educator now on the books for 1 year, and I just want to say I support this bill.
You support the bill? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
And what was your name?
Jessica DeSantis.
Jessica? Okay.
The beautiful family.
Anybody else with a child wants to come up?
Is someone out there that wants to speak?
Do you have a child?
They're together.
You're together, okay,
And then we've got one more lady over in the corner.
Devin Stevenson from Pembroke.
okay.
Separate family, but 2 of those kids are mine. And I just want to say that I support this bill. And that's all.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And who is the lady walking with a baby on her back?
No. Okay. Giving myself some room or else she'll wake up and start talking for me. Just make sure you're close enough to the mic. please.
Sure,
Thank
sure.
you.
Okay, I apologize if I'm out of breath as well.
Okay.
Okay.
You can lift it up.
Oh, perfect. Is right here all right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Hello, everyone.
Your name?
My name is Anicia Martin. Thank you for your time today. And I'd like to settle on a theme of time because that's important as to why I'm here today. I'm a citizen of this beautiful country of America. I'm a resident of this wonderful state of New Hampshire. I'm going on almost a decade now with my beautiful family. I have a daughter right over there playing. And I'm also a wife. I'm a mother. And importantly today, I'm the mother of a home-educated child. I'd also like to note that technically, my child is not of the age to be enrolled for schooling, etc. So we've already begun her home education at home. She's 6 years old, going on 7 in October. So technically this fall, she will have to be enrolled in such programs, etc. Now, again, this theme of time, I've already started her education at home. My time, her time, the time that you're giving me here today is incredibly valuable. Every single one of us could be anywhere else at this point in time on both sides of the aisle, and we're choosing to be here today. My time to dedicate to her, not just in the raising of her for her leisure, for her play, but for her education, invaluable. I will not get this time back. In my right as a citizen, as a resident of the state, as a mother, to educate my child, the time to ask a parent, to require a parent to fulfill a duty, if that is what it is, of providing a portfolio. Now, some people would say it's not an exorbitant amount of time to do so. I am already dedicating so much into this beautiful child who will grow up to be, and already is, an incredible, I apologize, human being. That time to put into this extra task, to, let's say, to fulfill a requirement, to say that I am worthy enough to educate my child, I oppose that. Well, I support this bill,
Thank you.
but I
Okay.
oppose that portfolio, to put it barely.
Okay, your time is up.
Thank you.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job, kids. You did a great job.
Anybody else with children?
I think that's it.
That's it? What was her name? The one who
What
just-
was your name? I'm sorry. What was your name? What did you say? Anissa?
Okay,
I think it's right there.
okay, I'll find it.
Yeah.
Oh. Sarah Scott. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair and
minutes,
members
2
of.
minutes.
All right, got it. For the opportunity to testify here today, my name is Sarah Scott, and I'm the Deputy State Director for Americans for Prosperity here in New Hampshire. I was homeschooled for most of my educational career, and so I'm here today in support of this bill. And I wanted to talk a little bit about my experience as a homeschooler here in the state. This really gave me the flexibility and the opportunity to pursue my passions, to learn at my own pace, get extra help on the subjects that I needed to, and also get a head start on college. I really credit my background in homeschooling with being the reason that I'm able to be here today. And I would say that that was not because of a system of oversight. It was because of the hard work and dedication of my parents and their ability to look at giving me the best education that really worked for us. So I know that for a lot of parents that choose homeschooling, they go through this process because they genuinely think this is the best education for their children. And right now, we're starting from this premise that the government should direct your child's education. And this bill starts from a better premise that parents are acting in good faith and understand how to make those decisions for their child's education. Right now, even well-intentioned requirements create this unnecessary friction and add a lot of time and scare parents for the most part. A lot of parents do live in fear of, am I following all the requirements? Did I meet all of the different paperwork things? Do I still have it? So this isn't really a question of whether families can succeed under the current system, but whether all of these requirements are even necessary in the first place. I think that the equal access portion of this legislation is incredibly important. I utilized that during my time homeschooling. I took classes at my local public school, and it was not an easy process to go about doing. It made it very difficult to actually figure out how the whole process worked. I know there were a lot of other homeschooled students that never were able to figure out that process and didn't have access to those public school classes. So I think that we know from other states that with far less restrictive framework, that this works, and so I would ask that the committee support this legislation. Happy to take questions.
Any questions? Senator Altshuler?
Thank you. Thank you for taking my question. So how does AFT define homeschool?
I would not say Americans for Prosperity has a definition for homeschool. I would just direct back to the legislative definition that's given in the bill.
It's not. That's why I'm asking. Your organization has come out and 10 toes down on this and use your example of having experienced homeschooling, but it is not in the definition.
So I would say
We have
that
optional and home educated student, but not home education.
home educated student would be a student receiving a home education. I would direct back to RSA 193A.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Leon? 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'm going to start my timer so I can do a good job. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I am here today alone because my two sons, who intended to come and testify, instead decided that they didn't want to miss a day of homeschool co-op to come testify, but would rather spend the day learning. At that co-op, you have a combination of the two kinds of homeschoolers. You have lifers, those students who are homeschoolers for their entire education or most of it. We also have some students who come into home education almost as a rehabilitation to both love themselves, relearn how to love themselves, and how to relearn loving to learn. In this co-op, there have been some students who have come in either because of bullying, the fact that they weren't able to understand what was going on, or they had some gap either socially, emotionally, or educationally. By coming into a group of other students who love to learn and support each other, many times were able to launch right back into that public school system, achieving at a higher level and in a stronger way with fewer emotional challenges in the school because of that time as a home educated student. The barriers that are currently in the statute are actually the most burdensome to those families who know that their child needs something. They need something educationally. They may be dealing with bullying. They may have mental health issues in the schools that they can't remediate. But looking at this list of both laws and rules becomes paralyzing for so many, and they don't do anything. Knowing these amazing children who have had a chance to love learning in themselves again is one reason why we should do away with these regulations so that they can pop out, become stronger, and then go back into the school system. I was the prime sponsor of House Bill 1663 back in 2022, which removed some of the regulations that had still been left after J.R. Hull's rewrite in 2012. It's better, but still, those families coming out of the public schools have a hard time complying. I want to say that the most important thing in this bill is removing the rulemaking authority, because if we don't remove that rulemaking authority, we could come in with very massive regulations that JLCAR could not deny, because there is nothing that would be inconsistent with the statutes.
Okay. Any questions? Seeing you have a question.
I do, just
Senator
one.
Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for taking my question. There was a comment previously where the right to homeschool your child was compared to voting. Do you see a correlation there?
I think it's a civic duty to educate students well, but I think that there's also the issue around permissions, because the permission to home educate can be revoked not by the Department of Education, but through DCYF with their investigation in families and the fact that they're being told sometimes that, well, if you send your child back to public school, we'll leave you alone, but we're going to keep asking questions. So while in the statutes, home education can't be revoked by the department or the school district, it can by DCYF. With the way that it's set up with this bill, that would be removed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Representative Altshuler looks like she has a
Senator
question.
Altshuler has a
Sorry,
question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Leon. So your kids are in a homeschool co-op. I'm very familiar with that program, those kinds of programs. Have your children, or you have experience with families who have chosen to unschool?
Thank you for the question. I do know some families that unschool, and some of those families, the children have chosen to do things like immerse themselves in highly academic programs, ones that are far more rigorous than those that you would follow on a normal path. They've signed up for things like the Stanford High School Online, and they have chosen rigorous academics because they were able to follow their own passions and their learning. I have known others that through their passions around aviation, they have learned reading, they have learned physics, they have learned math, they have learned presentation skills, and they have built an entire education out of that one sole focus. And I'd note that especially for some of our students that need IEPs in order to be engaged, if they can build all of their education around a passion, they actually can succeed in ways that others don't, and that they never would in a traditional school system, nor would they with a rigorous curriculum requirement from the state.
Thank you. Would you believe that that is not all of the way home unschooling is matched? That there are some outstanding kids who have alternative learning programs, but that's not, unschooling doesn't move itself into that realm in all cases. In fact, very few. And would you believe that bullying doesn't go away in homeschooling communities and in homeschooling co-ops?
Well, thank you for that. I would note that choosing a co-op that is actually supportive of your child and your family is important. Bullying is sort of a human thing, but homeschoolers have the opportunity to move from one co-op to another and find a better solution to that, and one that is more supportive of that family. And I would believe that there are some unschoolers where the child just sits and stares at the wall and hopes that the day is done. But I know that there are students sitting at desks in our public schools that go all the way from kindergarten through 12, sitting there looking at the wall, never learning, never doing any more than the minimum. And because of social promotion, they end up with a diploma from the state. So the idea that some children refuse to learn is not unique to homeschooling or to private school. Well, private schools, they wouldn't be able to stay, or to public schools. At a certain point, there are some people who are entirely resistant. I don't see any parents doing that at that point with their children, because the parents who choose to home educate really are looking for the best interests of their child. And they find something that gets their interest and pulls them in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Representative Noble? Okay. Representative Yuri Polosov.
Madam Chair, members of committee, for the record, my name is Yuri Polosov, representing beautiful towns of Hooksett and Dunbarton. I'm here in support of this bill, and first of all, I want to thank this committee for your continuing work in supporting of education options and homeschooling. And I want to thank this bill sponsors for bringing forward this bill that further supports homeschooling, and especially those families who do not rely on taxpayer-funded EFA program. And I have many arguments for this bill, but previous speakers spoke very well why this bill is needed, so I will finish with that. Please support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Nicholas Hobart.
This is my bill now.
You're Nicholas Hobart?
Close enough. Last one, yeah.
Okay, you have 2 minutes.
Gotcha. Hope it's already on. All right, so good morning, honorable members of the Senate Education Committee. My name is Nicholas Hobart, and I am strongly in support of HB 1268. So, in my opinion, this bill represents a significant step towards restoring true educational freedom in the Granite State. No more must New Hampshire families be required to notify any government entity when starting or running a home education program. This recognizes the right for every parent to direct the education of their own children, including home education, a natural right rather than a state-sanctioned permission. Homeschooling is already a widely used source of education, and it should not be treated as a negative factor or an automatic red flag for investigations. This bill rejects the idea that the government must approve or monitor how parents raise and teach their children. By limiting mandatory notification, portfolios, and evaluations, this bill removes compelled speech, record keeping, and submission to state-approved evaluators. This also forces the state to must presume parents are acting in their children's best interests rather than treating lack of compliance with paperwork as suspicious. Families can tailor education to their children's needs, values, and pace, a complete rejection of centralized planning. I actually have some data here too. So public schools, they have been struggling recently with the NAEP, that's the nation's report card. I know it's probably different in New Hampshire, but this represents the whole nation, as a whole. So reading scores for 12th graders hit their lowest level since 1992 in recent assessments. Math and reading scores for 4th and 8th graders and 13-year-olds have declined significantly since peaks around 2012 to 2013, with further drops post-2019, and there's no full rebound years later. And declines hit all ability levels, but are steepest among lower performing students with widening gaps, and even top students have stagnated or slipped slightly in some areas. Oh, that's
Your time is
that's
up.
time. All right, well, I appreciate your time, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.
Well, wait a minute. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Diane Nolan.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Diane Nolan. I am from Windham, New Hampshire. I'm a firm believer that parents have the fundamental right to raise and educate their children. We choose to live in the live free or die state because those rights are so important to us. We choose to home educate our children under RSA 193A because it's the ideal pathway for our family. Over the past 20 years of home education, we've been subject to many revisions to 193A, but HB 1268 offers freedoms that match our expectations. Home education law in line with fundamental parental rights. We didn't ask the state if we could bear these children. We shouldn't have to ask the state for permission to educate them. And we willingly bear the financial burden of that education in exchange for the freedom to choose the home education pathway.
Thank you. Questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Shannon McGinley.
Good afternoon, members of the Senate Education Committee. Thank you for hosting this. My name is Shannon McGinley, and I am a homeschooling parent of a 10-year-old. I have 4 adult sons as well. I want to speak first to the letter of intent, and that it's called a notification. I know it's not called a permission slip, but it doesn't feel neutral. We have to notify before starting our process of home educating, or at least within 5 days of starting. It creates a sense of oversight, and instead of something that parents have a right to do. A reported right is not a true right if we have to report it first. It feels more like a regulated activity. Even in the state of Connecticut, obviously would not be considered to be a red state. They do not require notification to homeschool. The analogy was given about that would it be the same as voting? And no, I do not believe that it is even remotely the same as voting and registering to vote, because they are our children. And like the person before me said, we don't ask the permission of the state to bear children. It's an intimate relationship, not the same as voting. I think that it's important that there's this proactive protection in this legislation for those who have been accused by DCYF of violations of the safety of their children just because they were home educated. Just skipping through my notes because I don't want to repeat. As far as keeping the portfolio, I do many things by choice for what I believe is for the best interest of my children. And I would probably keep records of my children's education, even if the state wasn't requiring it. But I do not believe that it is the state's place to require me to keep a portfolio. Public schools don't have to keep a portfolio. They don't have accountability. And as far as the question goes with the unschooling, that just because some people may not be living up to what the state might perceive as the best standard for their education, the public schools don't have to keep a portfolio and live up to those standards. You don't hear of public schools closing because they're failing a particular child or multiple children. Just in closing too, I want to speak on I'm glad that it has the repeal of the rulemaking because the rulemaking provides opportunities to require more on homeschoolers. And I also just want to speak to the fact that about the assessments having to be turned in. Representative Peternell was asked about that. And it was in 2012 that assessments became private and non-punitive. And that they did not have to be, at that point, not be submitted to participating agency or anyone else, 2012. And that's all I have. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. All right, I'll
Seeing
turn in
none,
my
thank you
written
very much.
testimony as well.
Ian Hewitt.
Madam Chair
You
and
have
members of the
2
committee.
minutes.
Ian Hewitt here for Cornerstone in support of 1268. And I really intended to come and rebut criticisms, but there were not many, so I'll be quick. I'll just make 2 quick points. First, to Senator Sullivan's earlier point in her questioning of Representative Noble, I'll just note that rarely have I seen a prime sponsor of any bill undertake as much effort to gather a wide variety of feedback from all kinds of different stakeholders and incorporate that feedback. Certainly all of the homeschooling communities associated with any of the churches we represent who wanted to participate in this process had their feedback listened to and incorporated by Representative Noble. The only other point that I'll make is that one criticism that I heard was that a notification mandate is a kind of protection, and taking away that mandate of generating certain documentation is going to somehow leave homeschoolers more vulnerable. The fact is that a piece of documentation right now under our current law is not a sort of magic talisman. There's nothing in our law that says if you have a piece of documentation, the state has to go away if it's doing a compulsory attendance or truancy or negligence investigation. A piece of documentation is just one piece of evidence that may help you depending on the given case, and you may still choose to generate documentation under this law. There's nothing prohibiting you from generating it. There's nothing even in our current law, in fact, that says if you have a piece of documentation, you are presumed to be complying with the law. But Representative Noble's bill adds on the bottom of page 2, line 34, for the first time, a presumption that if you are doing home education, you are in compliance with the law and you are presumptively not engaged in a Child Protection Act violation. That's something that ironically, some critics of this bill seem to think is being taken from them, but it's being actually provided to homeschoolers now for the first time in Representative Noble's bill. So this bill strengthens the position of homeschoolers in New Hampshire and makes us competitive with or beyond other more pro-homeschooling states like Connecticut, and we would ask you to support the bill. I would love to take any questions.
Questions? Senator Abbas?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for taking my question. And I was hoping I would still be here when you came up to testify. On
Great.
page 3, lines 5 to 10, has to do with situations where a warrant would be needed or circumstances where a warrant would not be needed. I had some concerns with that language, just I guess from an application perspective. I don't believe exigent circumstances is defined under any RSA other than a limited exception for a no-knock warrant when that's being to be executed, which is a very narrow set of circumstances. If that section were to be removed, at least the parts about the warrant, is there any other reason why that would be in there? Or do you see any way that can be enforced?
Well, my understanding of that specific section, Roman numeral 4, lines 5 through 10, is that it's just a re-articulation of existing constitutional law principles. So my understanding of genuine exigent circumstances as defined by law is the as defined by law clause is like referring to and incorporating just existing constitutional case law of the kind you're referring to.
Very good. Follow-up?
Follow-up?
If that's the case, it would do no harm to remove, at least, I think the last sentence talks about a different subject, but if we were just to remove that, then it wouldn't have any effect on the existing law.
I would defer to Representative Noble on that decision, but I do agree that that paragraph is simply re-articulating things that are already in existing constitutional law, unlike paragraph Roman numeral 7, the following paragraph, which adds new substantive protections and we think is more important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Altshuler?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I appreciate my colleague bringing this up. He's also had this marked for you. On page 3, it's section 6, line 9. An anonymous report standing alone shall not constitute probable cause. That is actually exactly how our Division of Children, Youth, and Families receives reports of abuse and neglect, is often through anonymous reporting because it's not safe for the person doing the reporting, could be someone in the house, to make that claim. And so our DCYF are able to go do a minimal facts interview, just ask some questions. They don't have a warrant. You don't have to let them in, but this is kind of setting up an alternative to the way we use that process now. And it would make homeschooling families a carve-out class that somehow abuse and neglect assertions don't apply to them. Is
Thank you, Senator.
that the intent, and are you open to a friendly amendment?
My recollection of the Fourth Amendment case law, and Senator Abbas may recall this better than I do, is that an anonymous report standing alone could be the basis for exigent circumstances, but could not be the basis by itself for a finding of probable cause under current case law. So my belief is that this entire paragraph, including lines 9 and 10, is just a rearticulation of current constitutional case law around entry into homes.
One more?
Thank you for taking my follow-up. The next paragraph below has to do, it doesn't quite say false reporting, but I guess more like frivolous reporting.
Frivolous.
If you don't mind, there is a bill that's on the consent calendar that came out, the Senate Children and Family Law Committee, dealing with false reports. Would you mind reviewing that? It's on the consent calendar, I think, for sometime in May.
I would be happy
But
to look
I
at that,
believe it
Senator.
would, I don't think these are addressing the same RSA, so they would both be on the books and conflict with each other. So if you don't mind reviewing that and following up with me.
I would be happy to look at that, Senator. I would just, by way of clarification, I would say about this paragraph that the intention of this paragraph is to address situations where someone files a report, the sole basis of which is that kid seems to be at home a lot. State agency, I think you ought to look into this.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
J.R. Howell. Did you have somebody with you?
I do.
Might as well come up.
We can do
together.
this together. That's fine.
Is that Benjamin?
It is, my youngest. I'll let you go first.
No, you go first.
Okay, Representative Hull, I'm here and speaking in favor of House Bill 1268. I'm going to speak as well for former HSLDA attorney Michael Donnelly, who's a friend who wrote a letter. I will submit his letter. In summary, his letter clearly states that he is in support of House Bill 1268. It is good legislation. It honors the fundamental principle parents do not need government's permission to direct their children's education, cites some case law. It would put New Hampshire in the company of a dozen states that already trust parents to do precisely this in terms of educating their children. And it would be a competitive advantage to the Granite State. Families do choose where they live relative to home education. And this would put us at a place where people want to move here over this. In terms of my own testimony, earlier today, a House Bill 1571 from 2012 was mentioned, where we first made the change to go from annual notifications and annual portfolio submissions to one-time notification and no submissions. That was a fundamental change back then. It was a combination of two bills. I think 545 was the other one, if I recall. Bureaucrats aren't educating our children. It's us as parents. My wife and I have spent more than 20 years educating 4 children, 2 of which have graduated college, and 2 of which are in. Benjamin is my youngest. He is here with me today. He is concurrently in his senior year of high school and enrolled in a local university or local college. My point is, we care the most. There is not another person in the state of New Hampshire who cares as much about the outcome of my children's education as me, the dad. Okay, there's not a bureaucrat, there's not a member of the DOE, there's not a teacher in any one of the schools. We participate, we do the best we can to make our kids, and I think the evidence is there. If you look at how well my children have done, they have the first 2 graduated college debt-free, having paid their own way. How many kids in the state of New Hampshire can say they went to 4-year universities, one of which was UNH, and they paid their own way through college? We're turning out, as homeschool families, the cream of the crop, yet we still have to meet these over-the-top regulations, and I would ask that you would get rid of these. Thank you.
Any questions for J.R. Howell?
His son speaking as well.
He is.
Okay, Benjamin, it's your turn.
Good afternoon, board. My name is Benjamin Hull. I am currently 17 years old. I am graduating in 2.5 weeks in May. I am also enrolled in MCC. I started this fall. I currently have a 3.25 GPA. I have been homeschooled from pre-kindergarten through 12th, achieving A grades throughout almost every single class I have taken. Some of the accomplishments I have done: I have gotten a superior rating at Fine Arts in Florida, which is a public speaking competition, and I did short sermon senior, and I got to compete with about 500 to 1,000 other students, which is something not a lot of people are able to do. Some of my physical accomplishments: I competed in one of the hardest 5-kilometer races in this side of the country, and I got 3rd in my bracket entry and 8th in my age group. These are things that most people who are in high school in a public school have not done. And I want to address something Madam Senator Altschiller said about bullying. What are you doing about bullying in public schools? Suicide and actual shootings happen in public schools because of bullying. If you look at the statistics, it is in public schools, not in co-ops, not in homeschools. So my question, and more my ask of you, is first address what is happening in public schools today around the country. Thank God it's not happening as much in our own state, New Hampshire, than it is in others. But first address the other cases where it is much more significant than addressing it here. Thank you.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you both very much. Okay, anybody else in the audience? Yes. You didn't sign up, but I allow you to speak anyhow.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Nate Green. I'm a division director with the New Hampshire Department of Education, and I will also try to stay within that 2 minutes. I'm just here to raise a question relative to one particular section of the statute, and that's within the first paragraph, where it adds education freedom account to the equal access options for curricular and co-curricular courses. Currently, home educated pupils have that access through our state statute, and when they access academic programs at their resident district, the state provides an amount of adequacy aid directly to that district to cover the education that the home educated pupil is accessing. Adding in education freedom account, I think, poses a couple of questions that we just need to get a good sense of how to approach that particular situation if we're adding it in here next to the home education section of this, because there is a relevant statute in our adequacy funding law that talks about how the state reimburses school districts for that education they're providing to home educated students, but it doesn't necessarily reference education freedom account students, which are being added into this particular section. So there are a couple of different options in terms of funding that particular pathway. I know currently there are education freedom account students who do access academic programs in their resident district, and they use their education freedom account program to pay for that access with the resident district. We could instead have a situation where they access it similarly to home education students, and the state provides funding directly to that district to cover that. Or it could be a situation where it's neither one of those things. So I think we just need some clarification around the particular funding part if we're adding education freedom account specifically into this section of the law.
Do you want to write that clarification?
We've had some conversations with House Education as well around that. Okay. I don't necessarily know if it belongs within this or if it belongs in the sections that deal specifically with adequacy aid, but I think we just need some clarification around the funding part of it. Yep.
Madam Chair, I'm happy to work with the House and come up with the language for an amendment for here.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Any other
Sounds great.
questions?
Yeah.
Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't check the box or whatever. My name is Mary Beth Wadlinger, a veteran homeschool parent from Wolfboro, beginning in the early 90s. I support HB 1268. The current law recognizes home education as a lawful alternative to public or private school attendance. While it is an important first step, the premise that family-based education is an alternative to public or private attendance is faulty. This is where HB 1268 does a good job of continuing to encode the protection of that natural right, eliminating government-mandated reporting and supervision. some points. Rights pre-exist any government. The government is viewed as a potential threat to these rights. The government exists to secure these rights, not to grant them. The right and responsibility of parents to direct the moral and intellectual upbringing of their children is inalienable. It is a Ninth Amendment right. Parents may choose to direct this fully within the family. They may choose to avail themselves of EFA funding and comply with those requirements. They may choose to delegate part of their child's education to the public or private school. The family is the default setting for education. Families have lawful status as the primary educators of their children by merely existing. That is the legal footing. There is no need to report anything to any government overlord. The premise that the state grants the right to homeschool, a premise that we have thus far been operating under, is false. The education of children is intrinsic to the family. Parents may choose to delegate part of this. Parents retain all the rights regardless of any delegation. Let's start living the life of liberty that is ours. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Okay, do I dare ask anybody else in here? You want to say something?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Representative James Tebow. I represent the city of Franklin in the town of Northfield. I wasn't planning on speaking today as I came in late.
You've got 2 minutes, so.
Of course, thank you, Madam Chair. So I have two sisters, one older, one younger. Both have special needs. My older sister graduated from a charter school. My younger sister went to that charter school for most of her educational career, but found around her sophomore year that it just was not working for her. She had C's, D's, and F's and was really struggling to get by, so my parents decided to start homeschooling her. They've been working with her one-on-one, and they hired a private special needs tutor to work with her in the areas where she struggles. She's now an A and some B, sometimes A student, and she's been approaching the passions that she has for different areas of literature that have really sparked an interest to her. She's now a junior, and she's looking to graduate early from high school when that wouldn't have even been imagined a couple of years ago. This bill, HB 1268, will help families like mine unload some of the burdens and fears that come with home education when they haven't pursued it before. Back when my older sister was in 7th grade, when we first wanted to move her to that charter school, the public school that we were moving her from threatened to call DCYF and have my sisters and I taken out of the home. Just that experience alone made it so my parents were terrified of the thought of moving her or moving my younger sister from that charter school into homeschooling because they didn't know what might happen to her. And it was a months-long process to make that transition. And it was a great stress on my family because both of my parents work full-time jobs. So there are examples out there in this state of families who struggle to find these resources. And HB 1268 will be able to help them to access them more freely, as is their right. So please pass this bill. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a question? Seeing none, thank you very much. Okay.
Do you dare ask?
Final call. Do I dare ask anybody else who wants to speak on this bill? If not, this closes the hearing on House Bill 1268. Executive session.
Daryl's not here. Do you want to meet?
Do what?
Do you want to recess briefly, or Daryl's not here? Or do you want to?
We're going to take a 5-minute recess, and the members here will discuss whether or not we can actually go into executive session. Thank you.
All right, so we can't do that.
Okay.
All right. Sorry, Trevor, we can't.
Okay. Thanks for those of you who are hanging on. There is not enough time, enough people for us to do any execing, so we'll close the public hearing.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it. All those in favor for adjourn?
Aye.
We are adjourning.